people of London. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work and live in this territory. I will also advise that the City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternate formats and communication supports for meetings upon request. To make a request specific to this meeting, please contact sppc@london.ca or phone 519-661-2489, extension 2425. Colleagues, just before we move on to the agenda items, I just want to draw your attention that Councillor Pelosa, Councillor Van Meerbergen, and Councillor Hillier are all with us via Zoom. The Mayor is not with us this afternoon as he is in Toronto meeting with the Premier and Provincial Cabinet Ministers on our whole community response initiative around housing and homelessness. So we will begin with the formal agenda, the disclosures of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we'll move along. We have no items on the consent agenda, no scheduled items. We have one item for direction, Council's 2023 to 2027 strategic plan. And I'm going to ask Ms. Wilcox if she will give us a brief presentation to run us through where we are today, the changes since we last gathered on this, and then we will enter into discussion for any final changes. Ms. Wilcox, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So two things to cover tonight, looking for final direction on the 2023 to 2027 strategic plan and also an overview of the next steps after approval of the plan. So in terms of an order of operations this afternoon, looking for, again, providing final direction on the plan, and there are within your package two components to that. Appendix A, you would have seen is a clean version of the draft plan, and Appendix B showed anywhere where there was proposed changes. Coming out of the last SPPC meeting, there was direction to smooth out some of the language, so you would see that reflected in Appendix B, and then sort of an accepted changes version in Appendix A. So in terms of next steps, before we get into any of the discussion, I just want to provide a brief overview. So here we are on April 17th, so final debate on this, and the report from this SPPC meeting will go for approval of council on April 25th, next Tuesday. In terms of where we're at, you've seen this many times, so we're finalizing that plan and the multi-year budget process begins, and then looking out to November when that implementation plan comes forward, which really gets into those actions that drive the implementation of your plan. So the multi-year budget, as you will recall, that begins with the target setting discussion that actually takes place tomorrow, and it determines the allocations of resources and really sets the pace of implementation of the strategic plan, and noting that any metrics, targets, and actions may be adjusted following that multi-year budget process and to reflect the decisions made through the multi-year budget. In terms of accountability and transparency, just a reminder that as part of our strategic planning framework, we have many ways that we report out to you and to the community on the implementation of the strategic plan. This includes the implementation plan. Again, that's coming forward in November, and that outlines the key actions, tactics, those timelines and accountabilities. So who's taking care of and is responsible for each of those actions required to implement the plan. On a semi-annual basis, we also provide progress reports, and that includes, so that takes that implementation plan, and then we provide a report every May and November on the accomplishments and any variances that would have taken place over 2 quarters that are included in that report. We also do an annual report to the community each and every November that highlights key activities and accomplishments over the past year. And we also do performance reports and an impact assessment. So the performance report seeks to answer, did we do what we set out to do? So it takes all of the metrics that have been established by council through this process, and we look at the change over the course of a year. So it would compare actuals and targets that were set, and there's a narrative component to that to speak to successes, challenges, data limitations, and solutions to be implemented. And then at the end of the plan, we do an impact assessment, which looks at and answers the question, how has London changed as a result of the implementation of Council's strategic plan? And that is where we roll all of that performance data over the lifetime of the plan, and we look at on the whole, through the plan, what has the change been and have we made an impact in the community? So this just shows what that looks like over the course of your term, with that first implementation plan piece coming in November, and then the reporting on progress and performance beginning in May 2024. And just in terms of once the final strategic plan is approved, we'll be taking a number of steps to really finalize that document, including the design. And so we'll post a Word version of the final plan on our Get Involved site tomorrow. Or next week following council approval. We will also be working on finalizing the design, so that will be circulated the week of May 2nd, and a digital copy will be available on our website, on Get Involved, and we'll share it with employees and also with organizational and community partners. There'll be a bit of a campaign around that to share that out with the community. So that concludes the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Wilcox. And before we get into any sort of debate motions around the strategic plan itself, I will look to colleagues to see if there are any questions for Ms. Wilcox on the process so far and the presentation that she just walked us through. Seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Wilcox. So colleagues, I'm just going to give you a quick process moving forward. In prior meetings, we have gone through the strategic plan area of focus by area of focus. But this is not the first time that this plan has been before us. We've made a lot of adjustments. So I'm not going to seek to go through each area one by one. I think if colleagues have any amendments that they'd like to make, they can put those forward at this time. I know that both Councillor McAllister and Councillor Trussow have circulated a couple of minor language changes that they'd like us to consider. Other than that, we will just proceed with a speakers list as those develop. So I will look to, I think we'll go to Councillor McAllister first, and I'll let you put forward your suggested change, and then we'll go to Councillor Trussow. Councillor McAllister.
Thank you, through the chair. So I do just have a minor change. So this is in well-being and safety. It is 1.3. I originally meant to have it worded this way, but I mixed up the wording. So I would like it changed to say improve communication and collaboration with neighborhood resource centers and community organizations. That was my only change, and I'm cutting myself off. I'm done.
Thank you, Councillor McAllister. So we're going to do these in up and down votes. So I'll look first to see if you've got a seconder for that change. Seeing a second from Councillor Frank. Any debate on this? Seeing none, then give us just a moment. I will ask the clerk to open the vote and we can have a quick vote on that. And that vote should now be open for everyone in eScribe.
Closing the vote, the motion's passed 14-0.
Thank you, colleagues. I will look now to Councillor Trussow.
Thank you. I did not send this to everyone because I didn't want to use the entire list. I did send it to the mayor. Mobility and transportation outcome 1, expected results, which is about improved ridership and satisfaction. Part C currently reads, quote, support initiatives through voice of the customer surveys to improve rider satisfaction. I propose changing that to read, quote, support transit rider survey initiatives to improve rider satisfaction. Number one, I believe that's more in keeping with the usage that's used throughout. And number two, it is broader to include other potential initiatives.
Thank you,
And
Councillor.
I would move that change.
And we've got that move. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Hopkins. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, then give us just a moment and we'll ask the clerk to open the vote on this.
Closing the vote, the motion's passed 14-0.
Thank you, colleagues. Moving right along, I will look to see if there's anyone else on the floor or on the call by Zoom who wants to propose any further changes. We can also have questions and comments at this time if there are any of those. Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Presiding Chair. I don't want to call you Deputy Mayor, but thank you for recognizing me. And I just want to make some comments here to everyone. I know a lot of work went into this. And I really do think it reflects the priorities of Londoners. I know the 8 focus areas really show those priorities. I know the conversations that we've had here for the past couple months we haven't always agreed. It's not perfect, but I have really valued the conversations that each and every one of you have brought to this strat plan. No, it's not perfect. I still want to go back to some better metrics in the climate change and sustainability growth area. I'd like to see some more conversations around that downtown core. And I know the values. I think it goes back to, probably isn't perfect, but I think it's as perfect as it can be. So I just want to end up thanking staff for all the work that you did, and also to everyone around this horseshoe. I really do think we've done a lot of heavy lifting, and it hasn't been easy from time to time, but it has been a growing experience for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Looking for any other speakers? I'm seeing none. So I am going to just look for a motion, and I'm just going to make sure that I have the language correct with the clerk, to receive the report as amended for the final version of the 2023 to 2027 strategic plan for our approval.
Thank you. Through the chair, the recommendation that will be before you and is loaded into eScribe includes the receiving of the staff report as well as the approval of the attached revised 2023 to 2027 strategic plan, and we will have a new version attached to the report from this meeting.
Thank you, Clerk. So do we have Councillor Trussow? You're moving? And seconded by Councillor Ferreira. And we will open the vote on that.
Councillors Stevenson and Trosso.
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
Closing the vote, the motion's passed 14-0.
Thank you, colleagues. We have no deferred matters on our agenda. We have no additional business. Just before we move to adjournment, I'm going to take just a moment from the chair, first of all, to echo what Councillor Hopkins said. And I think that if we look around this horseshoe, each and every one of us can see something that we have contributed to this plan in its final version. And yes, there was lots of good discussion, and we didn't all get what we wanted on everything, but I think we all contributed and have made it better. I want to specifically acknowledge Ms. Wilcox and Mr. Steinberg. I know that both of you have put in a tremendous amount of work on this, taking our questions, refining all the changes. Mr. Steinberg somehow managing to keep up with changes on the fly, even at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night at a couple of our later meetings. So that is much appreciated. And I know that the deputy city managers in all the departments have also had a role to play in terms of helping scope what this means going forward for us and how it meshes with our current plans. I know we've talked about the master mobility plan several times through this process, and I know Ms. Scher and her team are continuing to plug away at that. And of course, the work that Mr. Mathers and his department are doing around the housing supply and how that relates to the housing pillar. Every single person has contributed to this plan in some way, shape, or form. Of course, the hardest job now moving forward is Ms. Barbones as we start tomorrow night to scope the cost and how we pay for some of this. And of course, we'll have that discussion tomorrow night amongst ourselves too in terms of what's reasonable in terms of cost and pacing. But I think that everybody can share this with their constituents, knowing that while it may not reflect every priority, it reflects the most pressing priorities of the city and is the result of a really collaborative process, both from our management side as well as the council side. So thank you everyone involved, and a special tip of the hat to Ms. Wilcox and Mr. Steinberg. And I will say to all of you, because it is not 4:35, I have finished ahead of my projected time for chairing this meeting. So we'll look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Frank, Cuddy, Stevenson, Hopkins. We've got lots of movers there, Van Meerbergen. So by hand, all those in favor of adjournment?
That motion's carried.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your found time this evening because you might want to spend it tomorrow night.